How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 3.
Hello, America. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson. Welcome back across the nation. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Really delighted to have you guys with me. I hope you had a great Christmas. Merry Christmas. It is the 12th day of Christmas. Epiphany and Mardi Gras season start at midnight. Epiphany is when you celebrate the three wise men, the three kings day, they call it, and it starts the king cakes. I will be making, my son's already requested a king cake for his school. He's got a teacher from Louisiana, so I'll be making king cakes for the next several months until we get to Mardi Gras. Now, we got a lot of stories that lingered over Christmas. There are a number of stories that have come back into circulation. When we headed out 2 weeks ago, we were still dealing with the fallout of fraud in Minnesota. The biggest scalp to be claimed is Tim Walz, and I want you to think about this. Just last year, the governor of Minnesota became the vice presidential nominee for the Democratic Party. What's so funny is that he tried to brand and label the Republicans as weird, and it became very quick that he was the weirdo. And the Democrats were very weird, and it didn't work. He tried and failed. Walz and his wife talked about leaving their windows open at night during the riots after the George Floyd death so they could smell Minnesota burning. It's just very weird people. Then you had that weird embrace on stage between Kamala Harris's husband and Tim Walz's wife, as opposed to, there was more affection there than what she and Tim Walz tend to show each other. It's very odd family. Tim Walz a year ago was the vice presidential nominee for the Democratic Party and is not going to run again re-election, in large part because of the fallout from the Somali fraud. What's even more notable to me is that the Democrats are kind of glad to get rid of the guy. They are. Tim Kaine is still in the United States Senate. For those of you who don't know, Tim Kaine was Hillary Clinton's running mate. He kind of got overshadowed by Hillary versus the Don, but Tim Kaine, a United States Senator, is still in the United States Senate, got reelected to the United States Senate, but Tim Walz can't get elected governor of Minnesota. Nick Shirley is a YouTuber who has gone to Minnesota and exposed a lot of fraud. In the process, the news media has attacked him. As I mentioned earlier today, I did the show notes today, and I left them out from behind the paywall so everybody can get them. If you text the word Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777, you can get the show notes today. You can see the show notes. I did them myself. I want to read for you a story from NBC News. The headline is Minnesota Department finds child care centers targeted in viral video operating normally. The subtitle, the State Department of Children, Youth, and Families said it visited the 9 facilities at the center of right-wing claims of fraud and found them operating as expected. Now, I need to read for you the subtitle one more time. The State Department of Children, Youth, and Families says it visited the 9 facilities at the center of right-wing claims of fraud and found them operating as expected. That's the headline. The department issued this statement in response to requests for information about the Child Care Assistance Program, which it oversees grants from, and referenced a recently circulated video. The Trump administration and President Trump himself have alleged fraud in Minnesota after a recent video from a right-wing online influencer named Nick Shirley contained unsubstantiated claims of fraud at child care facilities. Now, pay attention. This is NBC News nationally. Unsubstantiated claims of fraud at child care facilities in the state. 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs later, the department said it has ongoing investigations into 4 of the centers and 55 investigations into providers that receive funding from the Child Care Assistance Program, which it oversees. The Trump administration, this is from NBC News, the Trump administration and President Donald Trump himself have alleged fraud in Minnesota after a recent video from a right-wing influencer named Nick Shirley contained unsubstantiated claims of fraud at child care centers in the state. Followed a mere 4 paragraphs later, the department says it has ongoing investigations into 4 of the centers. 4 paragraphs after saying the claims are unsubstantiated, NBC News says, no, they're substantiated. Which is it, NBC News? It actually is that there's fraud. Here's what's happening. Because Donald Trump has made an issue of it and because his supporters have made an issue of it, the national press has decided to be dismissive of it and scream racism. They've decided to scream racism. They've decided to say this is an attack on the Somali community. You've got Democrats now in Washington state rushing to pass a law to take all of the child services data offline because there's probably fraud in Washington state. Remember, the Somalis were routing money through Washington state to terrorists abroad. You know what's so notable about this is that after Nick Shirley did what he did, the Star Tribune, the Minneapolis Star Tribune, rushed out a story dismissing Nick Shirley, attacking Nick Shirley, and then said, and by the way, we've been covering this issue for years. Sounds like they've been covering up the issue for years, not covering the issue. The reporter who blasted Nick Shirley for doing a journalist job. How dare he do the job we weren't doing, then deleted her Twitter account. And even that reporter had to note that a local Fox affiliate in Minneapolis, in the year of our Lord 2019, documented how Somalis were engaged in fraud and routing federal dollars to terrorist groups in Africa. Chris Rufo had that report at the end of last year that started all this stuff. And Chris Rufo was actually late to the game. Back in 2019, a local Fox affiliate was saying, actually, this was happening then, 2018, 2019. But the national news would rather discredit a conservative than acknowledge there's a problem. It's crazy that we are watching an American news media circle the wagons around corruption fraud. Remember what they've told us for years. We need local media because local media is the only institution that can help stamp out local fraud. The local news media in Minnesota has been helping cover it up. It's what an abomination of news coverage. This is why we have an online influencer community, by the way. This is why it has become necessary for online influencers, videographers, YouTubers like Nick Shirley and others to go out and expose this stuff, because the national media is operating more and more as a protection racket for the left, a protection racket for the Democratic Party. Tim Walz is out of a job now in Minnesota because of the level of fraud. By the way, also in this story, Turns out, according to federal and state prosecutors, there are many, many, many more people involved. They're just so overwhelmed with the current prosecutions, they don't have enough manpower to prosecute everyone. You got that? The fraud was so expansive and extensive within the Somali community and elsewhere. Also, a lot of good progressive white people involved. We should note this. The fraud is so expansive and so extensive that federal and state prosecutors lack the resources and manpower to prosecute all of it. The Democrats are the ones who want to expand the IRS to target middle-class workers in the gig economy, and they're unwilling to step up funding for inspectors and prosecutors to prosecute the Somali immigrant community. Instead, they're screaming racism. They're screaming racism right now about what has been exposed because they have nothing left. They know it's true, so instead they have to make it a racial issue. It's wild to me that the American Press Corps, which insists that its primary role is to root out corruption, is handed corruption on a silver platter, and they decide instead of investigating the corruption, they got to tear down Nick Shirley. They've got to do an expose on him and how bad he is. Now, in fairness, I'm seeing lots of people say this is like an $18 to $20 billion criminal enterprise. It doesn't appear to actually be that much based on the data, just based on like annual appropriations. It doesn't actually appear to be $18 to $20 billion. That is the total amount appropriated, and that amount went to legitimate, deserving people as well. But there probably is over $1 billion in fraud. Probably is over $1 billion in fraud, and the press lacks the curiosity to expose it and engage, lacks the curiosity to talk about it, and is scared of being labeled racist by the left. And, you know, that's one of the other important issues for you to understand here is that so much of the press wants to be seen as on the side of the left that they pull their punches when it comes to reporting on the left because they want a virtue signal that they're on their side. They want a virtue signal that they're on the side of the left. They want a virtue signal that they're on the side of the righteous against Donald Trump and MAGA. So, I said I did the show notes, and I did do the show notes today. I actually wrote them myself, so if you find typos and stuff, they're actually my fault. But I linked to this, and I gave you the quote from Josh Rogan. He's a columnist for the Washington Post. He went on the ridiculous Abby Phillips show. Where, by the way, Tim Walz, last week, Tim Walz said the investigation into the Somali fraud was based on racism. And when Scott Jennings pointed out, they did, but Scott, he didn't say it. Someone put out the video and then showed Abby and the rest of us saying, but Scott. And I said, Abby Phillips came after me for pointing out that they would rather fact check Scott Jennings and get it wrong than acknowledge what he said was true, that Tim Walz is blaming racism when there's actual documented fraud. This is Josh Rogan from the Washington Post on the same show with Abby Phillips out there doing the whole MAGA is terrible sort of nonsense where they're unwilling to actually speak the truth of what's going on.
No one's for fraud. Everyone's against fraud. What's going on here is very clear. It's a targeting of the Somali and Somali American communities that was directed by the President of the United States in public, on television, repeatedly. He called them garbage. He said they should go back to where they came from. And then all of a sudden, you've got the Treasury Secretary, HHS, DHS, the FBI, and, every MAGA YouTuber flooding the Somali community in what can obviously be known as a targeted attack on this community.
It's not a targeted attack on the community, except for the fact that it's the community creating the fraud, but you can just scream racism. And Abby Phillips, everyone says, well, we don't have to talk about the story. Screw the corruption because it's racism. As opposed to it's a legitimate story of a community of immigrants that instead of assimilating into this country have decided to steal our money and send it to Islamic radicals in Africa. That's the actual story, but the media can't grapple with it because it would make them look bad.
Y'all, I'm not a New Year's resolution guy. I never have been, but I have resolved, I guess you could say, before the New Year's to just drink more water. It's good for you. And I buy bottled water for the office, but I finally broke down and I bought a Cove Pure. So if you don't know what it is, it's an incredible machine. It's got technology that's certified to remove 99.9% of contaminants for the water. It gets rid of PFAs, microplastics, pharmaceutical residue, fluoride. It gets everything removed. It's the purest water you can get, and you just pour tap water in the back and let the filters do the work, and it just works. When I used it for the first time, I didn't realize you could heat up the water. You can chill the water. You can just have regular tap water at room temperature, and it just works with the push of a button. It sits right on the countertop. Didn't have to call a plumber. It makes it really easy. Cove Pure is so easy to get pure water with the push of a button. Do your New Year's resolution, improve your health with the real clean water. Right now, you can get $200 off for a limited time at covepure.com/Eric. That's COVEPURE, covepure.com/Eric, ERICK.
You know, sometimes the president of the United States makes life difficult for himself, more difficult than it should be. He loves golf. Here's a random fact about Donald Trump that you may not know. Donald Trump actually studies grass. And I'm not making that up. He studies grass. Donald Trump is an avid golfer. Are you using Bermuda? Are you using Zoysia? Which way does it lie? How short can you cut it? How often can you cut it? What water does it need? He is an expert when it comes to grass on golf courses. He actually, and I don't say that like, he actually is an expert when it comes to grass and loves golf architecture. And he's taken an interest in the public golf courses in Washington, D.C. There is a group called the National Links Trust that has been in charge of the public courses in D.C. And Donald Trump wants to improve the courses and make them signature courses in Washington, D.C. And he thinks that'll bring more people in, help the city drive more revenue. Golfers tend to spend more money. The Wynn, where I like to play in Las Vegas, they were going to get rid of their golf course, and they shut it down, and the revenue went down. They realized that golfers spend a lot of money. And there are ways, and there were concerns in D.C. that if you improve the golf courses, that locals will have a hard time getting on. And the president's like, no, actually, around the country, including here where I am in Middle Georgia, actually, you can get priority for locals. There could be days where only locals can play. They can play at a smaller fee because their taxes go to the golf courses. The National Links Trust, the president didn't think was doing a good job, and he wants to do these dramatic upgrades, improve them. And by the way, it's a great idea. It actually is what he wants to do, bring in some star architectural talent for golf and redo these golf courses. Problem is he just declared that the National Links Trust was in breach of its contract, booted them out, and took the whole thing over. He could have gotten buy-in with his vision. The man loves golf, down to how the blade of grass lays on the golf course. He loves golf. He could have brought these people in, got them around the table, sold his vision, and taken care of it. And instead, he bullied them, said they breached their lease, and now there's going to be a lawsuit. It's going to drag out the process. It's going to slow down the reforms. He could have sped it up by buying in to his vision, and instead decided to steamroll the process, and it's going to slow the whole thing down. And I'm disappointed because I actually agree with the president. And had he gotten ownership and gotten buy-in from the Links Trust. And the Links Trust, by the way, did itself no favors, ran to MSNBC, made it a partisan thing, tried to rally Democrats. There's nothing they can do now. There's going to be a lawsuit. It's going to slow things down. Trump ultimately is going to win the fight. But, man, it's just so disappointing the way that the White House team around the president decided to bully everybody to get the president's vision as opposed to just getting some buy-in and ownership. He's got a great vision. They could have gotten buy-in. They chose to bully. It's like with Greenland. They're harming our relationship with Denmark when they could get the Danes to upgrade the place. Instead, they're being bullies. There's a way to get done what he wants to get done if they just stop being jerks about it. Welcome back. It is Eric Erickson. I am delighted to have you with me. The phone number is 877-973-7425. We had some folks who were waiting for a very long time on the phone and they dropped off. And my apologies. There's just so much stuff to cover today. Probably should have just kept the phone lines closed. But we're generally willing to take your phone calls. I've been out for 2 weeks. There's a lot to cover. You know what story is not being talked about? Now, part of it is because some of the news happened on Christmas Eve, but the president decided to suspend plans to send the National Guard to Portland, San Francisco, Chicago, and a couple other blue cities and blue states. Decided he wasn't going to keep fighting the fight. I need the attention of someone at the White House, please. You've got a story to tell. It is a very good story to tell. And I would note to my audience, you're not going to hear this story on CNN. You're not going to hear this story on MSNBC. You're not going to hear the story on ABC or NBC. Maybe with Barry Weiss in charge of CBS, you'll hear it on CBS News. Tony DeCouple, who's the new CBS News anchor, did a story on how they're going to actually cater to the news that Americans care about, not just the elite. And the elite lost their minds. How dare he? He's just going to do a pro-Trump newscast. Not true. CBS News is the third-ranked newscast. They're trying to boost their viewership. This is a story. Barry, if you're listening, you guys should cover this story. Tony, if you're listening, cover this story. Mr. President, Susie Wiles, Stephen Miller, Pete Hegseth, cover this story. Crime is down in Washington, D.C. as a direct result of the president's intervention in Washington, D.C. D.C.'s annual homicide total has declined. The federal takeover by the Trump administration and a change in police chiefs are both directly related to the collapse in crime in Washington, D.C. Are you hearing about this anywhere? Are you hearing about it? There's a short little blurb in the local section of the Washington Post about it. Hasn't made national news. On Saturday, in the press conference related to Maduro, President Trump said crime was down 77%. It's not true. Crime is not down 77% in Memphis. You want to know where crime is down, though? What it is, it's down 44% and 70% for murder, or car theft, rather. Car theft, the president said 77%, overinflated number, but it's down 44% since the president of the United States sent the National Guard to Memphis. Crime is down 44%. Car thefts are down 70%. Murders are down 44%. Overall, serious crime is down 41%. This is from the city's own numbers. 132 missing children have been found. 758 illegal guns have been found. 4,698 criminals have been taken off the street, and crime is down 44% in Memphis. This is a story that should be on every newscast. This is a story that should be everywhere because the media said it wouldn't work. The media said it's impossible. Inconceivable. And yet it has happened. I got a weird relationship with this Trump administration. I acknowledge I will criticize him, like his handling of the golf courses, tariffs. I'm willing to criticize, and boy, a lot of his supporters, they chew me up and spit me out. We're on Lynchburg, Virginia now, where Liberty University is. We're on here in Macon, Georgia, where I'm broadcasting from, which is kind of funny. My studio is literally right across the street from the local talk station, and I'm on today. I'm delighted to be on. My preacher can finally stop asking me when I'm going to get on radio. I'm here now. I'm here. I'm willing to criticize. I think there's got to be some kind of, I get so tired of the sycophants of the Trump administration. Bunch of seals clapping. Donald Trump comes out and does anything and it's like, no, this was a bad idea. But this is good, and they're not selling the story, and it drives me crazy. Every member of the press, all the talking heads said it would not work. Crime is down 44% in Memphis. Murders are down in Washington, D.C. Carjackings are significantly down in Washington, D.C. Home break-ins are down. Burglaries are down. Car break-ins are down. Crime is down everywhere this has been tried. They should double down on this. Go to Kansas City, Mr. President. You know, part of the problem in Kansas City is they shut down local jail. They let a lot of criminals out. Go to Kansas City, Mr. President. Go to New Orleans. Go to Baton Rouge. Baton Rouge, Louisiana is got all sorts of crime problems right now. There are now it's localized. There, you know, every city like I can look out my window here in my office and I can see a part of the city that I live in where you don't go at night. It's a contained area, but there's shootings, there's gang violence there, but where I live is pretty fine. Baton Rouge, Louisiana, the same way, but crime is. See, after Katrina blew through in 2005, a lot of people in the poor areas where the storm damage was the most, they moved to Baton Rouge and they took their crime with them. And Baton Rouge is not a safe city. Send the National Guard there. You got the governor of the state. Jeff Ledger would be glad to have you. Send it to New Orleans. Send it to Kansas City. Go to Savannah, Georgia. Come here to Macon, Georgia. The president has a story to tell. He has a story to tell about improving lives, making cities safe. And these are cities in red states that welcomed the president in to help. The blue states, the blue cities, they want the crime. Chicago wants to be a third world hellhole. At this point, it is a choice by the city of Chicago to be a third world hellhole. Portland, Oregon, Seattle, they want to be places where drug addicts have safe places to vomit on the street, poop, and die. It's sad. You know, the progressive mayor of San Francisco actually gave an interview over the weekend because crime is down in San Francisco. Now, this may hurt your head, and I'm very sorry to have to do this to you. This just might hurt your head to know. The progressive mayor of San Francisco, crime is down in San Francisco. Do you know how the progressive mayor of San Francisco lowered crime in San Francisco? They arrested people. They put people in jail. He said they overcorrected. They swung too far. They've had to come back. This is a liberal. He's not a wackadoo progressive. He's not a communist, but he's a liberal. He says we overcorrected. We swung too far to the left. We had to come back. We had to start arresting people and make people have consequences. Yes. We have a dog I don't talk about very much because I haven't liked him very much. Our dog Maggie died, and Maggie was a sweet dog. You know, a lot of golden doodles are insane. We had like the non-neurotic golden doodle, and she was the perfect dog with the perfect temperament, was the perfect size. My wife loved her. We had to put her down last November, and my wife wanted a new dog, and we got a new dog from a breeder down in South Alabama. It's instead of being a golden doodle, it's a schnauzer doodle mix. They call it a schnoodle, which I refuse to say. It's a schnauzer doodle mix. It's a giant schnauzer. The dog is big, and he's just did not like him. Do not like him, Sam. I did not like him. And after me cooking dinner for the kids one night and him promptly getting onto the counter and eating the dinner and a cheesecake that I had spent 2 days making, I had to look at my wife and say, the dog's either got to go back or you got to get him trained. So my wife sent Max, our dog, to her cousin, who is a genius dog whisperer. His name is Joshua. He lives down in South Georgia, and he trains dogs for hunters And he trains dogs for families, makes a killer on golden, because so many people get the neuro. See, the good golden doodles, they become the service animals. Most people, this is what we learned when we picked out our first animal. This was the genius of us picking out Maggie. So my wife talked to a trainer and said, never pick the dog that comes to you first. You understand me? Never pick the dog that comes up to you. When you go to the breeder and you say you want a dog, the dog comes up to you like, oh, the puppy loves us. He's chosen us. And you take that's the dog that chose you because he thinks he can pull one over on you. That's the dog who's going to dominate you. Never pick the dog that comes to you first. My wife sat on the floor when we picked our first dog out, and all these dogs climbed over her. When all the dogs were bored and left her alone, another dog comes up, climbs her lap, curls up, goes back to sleep. That was our dog, Maggie. We didn't get that choice with Max. My wife was desperate for another dog. We got Max. I was so tired of him. He would try to eat my socks. He'd lunge at me in the morning, tackle me when I got up. It infuriated me that he ate the cheesecake and all the bacon. So we sent him to my wife's cousin, Joshua, who is a genius dog trainer. And I now love our dog. Our dog stays in his place until we call him. He goes to the door when he needs to go outside. He will play and roughhouse with us when we want him to. And then when we tell him to knock it off, he knocks it off. Last night, I found the dog stretched out across my wife, sound asleep, exactly the way my wife wanted. Joshua has done a brilliant job training our dog. He trains hunting dogs and a lot of people's neurotic golden doodles. He's just, a genius. He's completely transformed our life with this dog. And now, this is a good dog. When I walk outside with this dog now, this dog literally knocked my wife over 3 times, pulled my wife through the mud. He's a giant dog. Now, when we go outside, the dog stays right by our heel, left heel. In fact, last night I was walking him and he was on my right side, and the dog moved around and got on the left side and stayed by my side. And when I stop now, when we go for a walk, the dog sits. Just immediately. Like you're walking and then you stop, the dog immediately stops and sits. I'm like, this is a good, well-trained dog. Joshua did a fantastic job. You're like, Erickson, what does this have to do with anything? Well, I got real frustrated and I didn't want to talk about the dog. I get frustrated with the president sometimes and don't want to talk about my frustrations. I don't want to disagree with you. But there's a story to tell. There's a story to tell on crime. There's a story to tell about communities coming together and straightening up. There's a story to tell about sometimes you got to have consequence. And that was the thing with our dog. The way the dog had originally been trained, it was you got to give it a treat for everything. And if you didn't give it a treat, it wouldn't behave. And it wanted all reward and no consequence, no punishment. And we took him to Joshua. Joshua's like, no, you got a German dog, a schnauzer. The dog's got to be disciplined. You got to punish the dog. You can't just give him a treat. And the people on the left, they want treats. They want to be coddled. They want the criminals to be coddled. They want the criminals. They wanted like our dog's ill behavior. They wanted the criminals patted on the head. And well, we need a social worker, not a police officer. And what's happened? Crime has exploded. And the president did essentially what our Joshua, our cousin and dog trainer did is we got to crack the whip. We got to be willing to discipline. We got to push the button on the e-collar to let the dog know you're not getting a treat. You gotta behave. And the president sent the National Guard in. And what has happened? Crime is down in these cities. There's a story to tell. There's a story to tell. And it's so frustrating to me the president's not telling the story. The president should go to Memphis. Go to Memphis. Crime is down 44%. Car theft down 70%. Murder is down 44%. Serious crime down 41%. You have a story to tell, Mr. President. Tell the story. Tell how you actually impose consequence. And the criminals stayed away or went to jail. 132 missing children have been found. In Washington, D.C., crime is down. Carjackings are down. Car thefts are down. Car break-ins are down. Home break-ins are down. Burglaries are down. Business break-ins are down. Theft is down. Murder is down. And the left said it wouldn't happen. The left said that it would not happen. They dismissed it. You've got a story to tell. Tell the story. Crime is down in places the president was determined to bring crime down. And you got places like Chicago that have refused him to come in. They want a crime-infested hellhole. They want the crime. Portland, Seattle, they want the drug addicts, overdose, and they want it. It's a choice they have made. Let them live with the choice. In the same way New York is going to live with the choice of having a communist general secretary in charge, let these cities have their choice. You go to the states that want you, and you bring crime down and show the Americans in Chicago and in Portland and Seattle and New York that there is a choice to be made. You can have a safe city. Having a safe city is a choice. Got to do like the trainer and the dog. There's consequence, and people will fall in line. Stop coddling the criminals. The president refused to coddle the criminals in Memphis and D.C. Crime is down. It's a story to tell, and we should all recognize you have a choice to have a safe city. You have to choose to have it. Bill Lee, the governor of Tennessee, chose, and the people of Memphis chose, to allow the president to come in and bring crime down, and it worked. It's a choice other Americans could make. It's a choice they should make. But first, the president needs to tell the story, because the national media, they're not telling the story. And I think, by the way, as the sound is oddly out here, that the president, he needs to go out and make the case to the American public that we need more safe streets elsewhere. And in so doing, I personally think the president needs to make a really big deal. Now, Kobe, I'm going to let you play the sounder because the computer just crashed. Greetings, conversationalists. Glad to have you with me. I want to read you a disturbing nugget from The Atlantic. 41% of Democratic college students would not knowingly support a Republican-run business. 37% of Democratic college students would not be friends with a Republican. 30% of Democratic college students would not work knowingly for a Republican. Do you know what the Republican numbers are for Republican college students? 7% wouldn't support a Democratic-run business. 5% wouldn't be friends with a Democrat. 7% wouldn't work for a Democrat. 41, 37, and 30 for the Democratic students, 7, 5, and 7 for the Republican students. Bigotry on the left is on the rise. Intolerance from the left. And why? Because progressives have replaced God for government, and politics has become their religion. You're not friends with heretics if you're a person of faith. You refuse to help the apostates of your religion. It is deep, 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 deep intolerance. And by the way, part of it is there's this radical empathy on the left now where they have to empathize with everyone, but they can't empathize with those who refuse to do the same. They're tolerant of everything except intolerance, and intolerance is anything these people don't like. And this is dangerous as well. A progressive activist has vandalized Vice President Vance's home in Ohio, smashed the windows. Vance was not home, so the Secret Service didn't open fire or anything like that. They've arrested the guy and charged him. Progressive violence is on the rise because progressivism has embraced government as religion and politics as religion, and they're deeply, deeply intolerant. And on the right, we're simply willing to love our neighbors, even if they're Democrats. The Democrats could go a long way towards learning something about that.